Hello everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Michael and today I'm going to make peach biscuits. I found these peaches in the store and these looked absolutely beautiful and I thought I'm going to get these and we're going to make some peach biscuits today. So I've already taken one of these peaches. These are about the size of the palm of your hand and I've already cut those up. That's about 1 cup of peaches and that was one of these. And I'm going to go ahead and set these other ones to the side over here. And I did put a little bit of lemon juice on the top of these. That's just to keep these from turning brown while I prepared everything else. But you don't have to do that if you cut these up and immediately make your biscuits. But if you're going to let them sit for a while, then put just a little bit of lemon juice on it, mix that around on there so they'll stay nice and fresh looking. So I've got my food processor out today. And normally if you've seen any of my other biscuit videos on my channel, I've used my hands to mix in the butter into the flour. But I'm going to show you today how to use the food processor. This is really easy on how to do this. And it takes that legwork out of your hands. But you can continue to do that with your hands if you want to, or you can use a fork and you can smash the butter into the flour that way. Or if you've got one of the little bread hooks, you can do one of those little dough hooks. You can put that where that mixes in the butter with the flour. So we're going to get started now with my flour, and I'm going to use all-purpose flour, and I'm going to measure it out in grams. I've got a nice scale here. If you don't have a kitchen scale, then you'll measure out 2 cups of your all-purpose flour, and this is going to be 240 grams. Now that I've got my flour measured out, I'll set my scale to the side. I'll use that again when I get ready to measure out my buttermilk, but for now we're going to go with our dry ingredients. And with the food processor, this is going to be really nice because I'm going to put the flour in the food processor. Now with my other dry ingredients, I'm going to put those into the food processor as well. And I've got a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. We're just going to put that in. I've got 1 teaspoon of salt. I've got 2 tablespoons of baking powder. And I've got 2 tablespoons of sugar. And we're going to put that in, and that's for the peaches on that. So these will be a nice little bit of sweet treat. And I'm going to put a glaze on the end of those, and I'm going to show you how to make that as well. So now with this, you just put these dry ingredients together in your food processor, turn it on and blend it together. If you don't have a food processor, you can definitely just take a whisk and whisk your dry ingredients together in the bowl. I'm going to leave my dry ingredients in my food processor, and I've got 1 stick of butter, that's 113 grams. I'm going to take that and cut that up into little cubes. And I left this in the refrigerator intentionally because you want this to be as cold as you can keep it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll show you how I'm going to cut this up. Just cut this up into little squares. And that'll look just like that. And then I'm going to take that and put that into my food processor and just spread those around. So I'm going to continue to work on the rest of the stick of butter here and do the same thing all the way around. All right, now that I've got my butter in the food processor, I'm going to put the lid on it. And I'm going to process this. We'll pulse it for about 30 seconds to a minute so that we can get that incorporated into our flour. And I'll show you what that looks like when we're done. All right, let's take a look at my flour mixture combination. I wanted to show you what that looks like. So it's incorporated into it. Kind of looks like cornmeal or loose sand. And we've still got some little bitty pieces of our butter in there. We didn't get all that incorporated in. You want to leave a few pieces in there so we get those nice flakes in our biscuits. So this is all we're going to do with our food processor now. So I'm going to put the dry ingredients back into my bowl. I've got my dry ingredients back in my bowl now. I'm going to take my peaches and I'm going to put those into here, and I'm going to incorporate those into that flour so that we get a little bit of that flour on each one of our pieces of our peach, and that way they don't sink to the bottom when we mix that all together. So just give that a good mix through so that we get the flour on our peaches there. All right, I've got my peaches now incorporated into my flour, and I'm going to go grab my buttermilk, and I want 1 cup or 240 milliliters. All right, I've got my buttermilk measured out here. Now I'm going to add that to my dry ingredients. Now I'm going to take my spatula and I'm just going to give that a good toss through. Now this dough is going to be a little bit on the wet side, but we are going to take care of that here on our mat in just a few seconds. So we just want to kind of get that buttermilk incorporated around. We're not going to get it into the ball itself until we get it out onto our mat. So we just want to kind of get that dry ingredients mixed together just there. All right, so that looks pretty good. It's not together yet. It's a little bit on the wet side. Now we're going to get my silicone mat out here and put these pretty peaches to the side. I'm going to take some flour that I've got here, and I'm just going to kind of sprinkle it out on my mat so we can get that from sticking to it. It's still going to stick to it a little bit, but it's not going to be as bad as if I didn't put that on there at all. And then you'll take your dough that you've got here, your biscuit dough, and we're going to put that right on the mat here, right in the middle. I'm going to take a little bit more flour and just kind of sprinkle it across the top. And then I'm going to take some of the flour and put that on my hands here, because I definitely want to make sure that I keep my hands nice and floured on that so we can get this mashed together. And we're just going to take it and give it a little pat together just like that, kind of work it out. And we're going to fold it in on itself 4 or 5 times. We don't want to overwork our biscuit dough, because if you do, you'll get really tough biscuits, and we definitely don't want that. So we'll take our bench scraper that we got here and just turn it in on itself. And then we'll come in on this side just like that. And it might need a little bit more flour on the top. You don't have to get really heavy with it, just a little bit on there just to keep your hands from getting stuck to your dough. And we'll give that another pat out. Now we came in from this side, we'll come in from the other side now. So we'll do the 90-degree turn with that, and we'll come in, bring your dough over like that, fold it in on itself on the top. We got a little bit wet here on the side, so we'll put just a little bit of our flour in and some on the mat here. And we'll come in and give that a little pat down again. Now I'm going to take the mat itself, now that I've kind of worked it into it, and I'm going to pull the mat over and do it just like that. And then I'm going to do it again so I can get any of this loose flour that's hanging out here. We'll get it incorporated into our dough. So now that we've got some pieces here on the side that kind of stick to the mat, we'll just bring that up and bring that in, and we'll keep working this until we get a nice dough. Should be another couple of turns and we'll be finished with this. Every time we give this dough a turn like that, it's building those layers in there, and we'll get that nice flaky biscuits and those nice rise on those. So we'll just continue to work those, and this will be number 4 for me here. Now I've got a bowl of flour here, and I've got my biscuit cutter. This is about a 3-inch biscuit cutter, and with that we want to make sure that we keep that powdered all the way around with your flour so that it doesn't stick to our dough when we get ready to make our biscuits. And I've got a tray here with a silicone sheet in it, and I've got another tray under it. I like baking my biscuits that way so that the bottoms, then the biscuits get evenly browned all the way around, and I don't get those really hard biscuit bottoms on those. If you like that way, a lot of people do, then definitely don't put the second tray on there. But I've got the second tray on here so that I get an even baked biscuit all the way around. All right, so now that we've got our dough flattened out here on our mat, we want that to be about 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch tall. And you can see here on the sides where I've got all those nice layers built in there. And I'm going to take my biscuit cutter here, and want to take that and we want to push down. You don't want to turn it, you just want to push straight down in it, and then you can pull the dough out from around it, and you can lift your biscuit right out, and it'll come out just like that. I wanted to show you the thickness of that, and we're going to put that right on our silicone mat. Now when you're placing your biscuits on your mat, I always place mine so that they're touching each other. That way they get a good rise when they start rising and they rise up. Sometimes if you put them in there and you don't touch them like that, they'll start spreading out, or they could rise up really fast and fall over, and we definitely don't want that. So I'll show you when we get done and how many biscuits we're going to get out of this. But just keep flouring your biscuit cutter and go back in and get another biscuit out of there. That's absolutely beautiful. And I want to show you how I got my biscuits here side by side, and then I'll come in and put my next one right here. Now when you get all your biscuits cut out and you can't cut any more of the big circles out, we'll just take it and we'll fold it back in on itself and fold it over a couple of times. And if you need to use any more flour, put some more flour down, and then we'll get ready to press out another biscuit. All right, so I've got my last little bit of my dough here, and I've turned it on itself. I'm going to turn it one more time. We don't want to really overwork this, because this will continue to work that gluten in there, and we definitely don't want that really hard biscuit. So we'll get one more biscuit out of this, and I've got just enough for one more, and I'll show you what I'll do with that. You can either hand form it, or you can put it into the biscuit cutter and form it that way. And how you do that is you just take it after you folded it in on itself, and you put it inside of your biscuit cutter there, and just work it around with your fingers, and that'll get your biscuit. So I've got 8 pretty biscuits here. I'm going to go ahead and pop them into that preheated oven, and these will cook between 15 to 20 minutes. Everybody's oven is going to cook a little bit differently, so keep a watch on these, and we'll come back and I'll show you what we'll do next after these come out. I am back, and I've got some beautiful biscuits here. These look absolutely incredible, and I'm going to go now. I've got some melted butter, And I've got a brush here, and I'm going to go and take and I'm going to brush the top of my biscuits with this butter. I think that just adds so much more flavor to it, and let that soak in on the top of that. All right, now that I've got that butter in there, I'm going to make my glaze and let these cool down just a little bit, and I'll come back and show you how to make that glaze. Now for the glaze for our peach biscuits, I've got 1 cup of powdered sugar, or that's 120 grams, and I've got 2 to 3 tablespoons of half and half here, and then I've got some vanilla. So with the vanilla, I'm just going to measure out about a half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of that, and I'm just going to put that in. I'm just going to eyeball that. And then I'm going to put in a little bit of my milk. I'm not going to put the whole thing because I might not need it all. Depending on if you're in a humid area, if your house is humid, or if you're in a dry area, you might need more or less. So let's just put just a little bit in. And I'll take this little whisk I've got here and just give that a good mix around. So I went and got me a smaller whisk so I can get that mixed together really nicely. And then I'm going to put just a little bit more milk in, or half and half. And this will depend on how much you like of your glaze, how thick you want it, how runny you want it. So we'll just keep putting in a little bit more of our half and half here. That's still a little bit too thick. Put just a little bit more in. All right, so that's really mixing together nicely now. And let's see what that looks like. It's still a little bit too thick for me, so let's put just a little bit more milk in. And the one thing that's forgiving about this glaze, if you get it too runny and it's not the way you want it, you can always put a little bit more powdered sugar in it, and it will thicken that right back up again. So let's see where I'm at with this now. So this looks about where we want this, so let's give this a good mix just to make sure. Yep, that looks perfect. That'll come off of that and onto our biscuits really nicely. And as you can see here, I didn't use maybe half of what I had here. So again, it's just going to depend on a lot of different conditions. I've got my glaze made now, and I've got my brush that I use for my butter, and we'll just give that a good little mix through. And I've got my peach biscuits back over here, and let's put just a little bit of that onto our top of our biscuits here. That looks absolutely incredible. Let's give a little bit all of it on all of them. And if we need some more glaze, if we don't have enough, you saw how easy it was to make it, we'll just make a little bit more. All right, we've got our glaze on now. I'm going to grab one of my biscuits, and we'll give this a little taste. That looks absolutely incredible. I'm going to go ahead and take the rest of these away so I can show you what we're going to do as a topping on these. So we've got that nice pretty biscuit, and I've cut up another one of my peaches, and we're just going to put a little bit of the peaches on the top of that. That will dress that up really nicely, and I'm going to take me a fork here and just cut me a piece of that. Look how tender that looks. I wanted to show you what that looks like there. Absolutely incredible. I'll see if I can't turn it up on its side. You can see all those layers on the side of that biscuit. Now let's give this a try. That is absolutely delicious. Those peaches throughout that biscuit are incredible. That glaze that we've got on the top and those extra fresh ones that we got on the top there really accentuates these biscuits. I'm going to get me another bite of these. These are incredible. If you like this content, maybe you might consider giving me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And while you're at it, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you how your peach biscuits turned out. And you can also use the frozen ones. If you can't find fresh peaches like I did, you can definitely use frozen peaches. With those, when they thaw out, you might need to take a little bit of that moisture off on those, because you don't want to put all that juice and those peaches in there soggy in your biscuits, and it might be a little bit too much. But definitely give this a try, whether you've got fresh or frozen. These are going to be a hit at your table. These will make a great dessert or a great side addition to any breakfast. And while you're at it, check out one of these other 2 videos over here on the side. You might find something else you like. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Give these peach biscuits a try. Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye now.